Hey there, guys. Good to be back with you once again, and we're just going to go ahead and get straight on into it. So, you know what that means. It means that it is NBA Jam time, and that's because we already sort of put in our dues yesterday by playing our favorite Team USA basketball game. Despite making no secret of my actual feelings towards that game, I will tell you that it's actually been kind of fun to play. And I've been kind of impressed that so many people seem to be interested in it. I do think that from the advice that people have given me, I have sort of an idea of what to do, at least on offense in that game. But the defensive context, I'm still kind of lost. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Initially, I was thinking, so I'm making a video tomorrow for this channel, the one that should come out tomorrow. We'll see if I can get it out in time is another question, because I'm still obviously making it right now. I thought for a little while, you know, I should just push ahead with that game and play it a couple more times a day, or play some of the other EA games from around that time, and then do a video comparing it to the Tecmo Super Basketball game or whatever. But I've decided against doing that. I mean, it definitely is a possibility, right? But I think I'm going to hold off a little bit before, you know, getting something like that done. What I might do is once the series with Team USA is done, I might make a video that is just a specific sort of look into that, and, you know, lessons learned or lessons not learned in that game or whatever. You know, have a little bit of fun with it that way. But I don't think that I'm going to do that for the next video. Instead, I'm thinking of doing something on the NBA's gambling scandal, or the NBA, the college basketball gambling scandal of the early 1950s, the late 40s, after reading a little bit about that this morning. So it's probably going to be another one of these kind of like history videos where I don't know if I can find much actual footage, but we're definitely going to go through a whole bunch of early newspapers and see if we can sort of catch what's going on. I think it is somewhat pertinent given the recent college basketball gambling scandals and stuff. I mean, the thing is that we've been through this before. So, you know, there are a lot of people, including my father, who, by the way, is a journalist, who have written about, you know, the world of basketball, the world of sports sort of, you know, losing a lot of its credibility when stuff like this happens. And it's kind of true. There was an article, I think it was in the New York Times, actually, so it was probably The Athletic that put this together, that was talking about, you know, whether it's actually the case that gambling scandals will cause people to lose interest in these sports. The actual truth is that scandal, at least in the short term, will increase interest. But the problem is that in the long term, it will not. So, you know, in the short term, people will want to look at it the same way you would look at like a car wreck, right? In the long term, though, people get really, really frustrated when there's a lot of scandal. And it seems like, you know, all the news from the sport is bad news and stuff like that. And especially if the scandal or the problems like continue over numerous years, that's where things get really bad. So, for example, for Major League Baseball, in the wake of the 1981 strike, 1982 was actually a really popular season. It was very good for attendance and stuff like that. But because the ownership and the players were not able to solve their differences at all, by the time the 94 strike came around, people were just sick of it. And people were like, you know, you guys need to figure out what you're doing. You guys keep having the same problems over and over again. You know, we're sick of this and we're gone. All right, so when it comes to college basketball, that's something that very well might happen. It's a different situation, as you know, in professional wrestling, where everybody knows that it's fake, you have kayfabe and stuff like that. And by the way, the fake aspect of professional wrestling itself is something that kind of needs to be taken with kind of a grain of salt, a grain of shot. Right? The reason why I say that is because while it is true that the outcomes are predetermined and that a lot of it's scripted, the falls that those guys take are definitely not fake. like it's a very, very athletic type sport. You can think of it as sort of sport, I think, in the sense that you would think of like cheerleading as a sport, right? Where you're not really competing against somebody else, and a lot of things are sort of predetermined and pre-choreographed, right? Except in cheerleading, you don't have people like actually like putting, well, I guess you sort of do, but it's not sort of like putting your health and life on the line in the same way that it is in professional wrestling. So Anyway, who knows how it is that we got off onto this topic, but this is what happens when I start the ramble. So anyway, we're gonna probably take a look for tomorrow's video here at that gambling scandal, which is something that I know a little bit about, but I will surely know more about in the very, very near future. And so we'll look into that and see what it is we can find out. Now remember, this is different than the point shaving scandal of the late 1970s. Remember Goodfellas? You know, the scene where they're watching. You got the basketball game on the in the background when they're sitting in the bar and stuff, and that's supposed to be a reference to that point shaving scandal. This scandal from the early 50s is and late 40s is similar, but it's not exactly the same thing. But it worked sort of under similar lines. Now these days with legalized betting, it's not as probable, I would argue, that something like this would happen. I think that there are a lot of safeguards out there, but it still could happen, right? You still have the same incentives, and that's where the real problem lies, right? I mean, the thing that I've learned about, you know, human nature and the way that and reasons why people will do the things that they do is people tend to generally respond to incentives around them, right? It's sort of the field of behavioral economics that was, you know, sort of like a catchphrase or whatever a couple of years ago, really is what it's all about. And if you understand how people actually behave and why they do the things that they do, it can be really profitable for you. And it can also, you know, help you out a lot in terms of interpersonal relationships, because the truth is that interpersonal relations and the incentives people find and stuff like that will tell you a lot about what it is that they're going to do, how it is that they're going to act, and how you can get them to act in a way that they otherwise wouldn't act. So many, many years ago, I had wished that I had studied this back when I was a supervisor. This was a long time ago in a country far, far away. When I had supervisory duties, though, I found myself oftentimes trying to figure out how to convince people to do something they didn't want to do, and to do it in a certain way that didn't seem natural to them, you know. And it's not that easy to like get people to do what you want them to do, but what they don't naturally want to do, unless at least you understand sort of the incentives that they face. Now, the unfortunate thing is that a lot of employers also don't fully understand like the incentive structure, and the incentive turns into something like, you know, thou shalt do this, or we're going to like get rid of you, or whatever. And oftentimes that ends up having some, you know, really, you know, not great consequences in terms of like employee-employer relations, and, you know, so on and so forth. And when you're looking at the world of like sports, and you're looking at, you know, I don't know, like a potential baseball shutdown or strike or whatever, like you really do need to look again into, you know, what the incentives really are for certain groups to act a certain way, and see what you can do to sort of maximize those incentives and make it so that, you know, people actually want to do something that's in the good of the sport in general, instead of just acting, you know, in a way that is like in their own blind self and obvious self-interest, right? Now get in there, baby. Anyway, so there you go. I bet you weren't expecting that. We're going to give you a little bit of what today? We're going to give you a little bit of sort of like psychology, you know, as thought of by me when I'm in the middle of playing NBA Jam. Scotty, you got to go back and play defense, bro. There you go. See, if I were playing with the Cavs and I had Price, I'd be shooting up threes like every other shot, right? None of this like try to drive stuff. And man, Price, what a dirty player, huh? Dirty player. So I grew up watching dirty basketball, right? Because I grew up in Utah, and everybody was watching the Jazz back in the day. And so you had like, you know, John Stockton. John Stockton is sort of like the king of the dirty players. Karl Malone as well. If you go back and you watch the old games, and you take a real close look at some of those picks, and yeah, you understand what I'm talking about. The most famous one is, you know, that famous Western Conference Finals in 1997 where the Jazz finally win it. We finally beat the Rockets. So if you go back, you watch that final play where Stockton hits the three on the inbounds pass to win the series in Game 6. The funny thing is, if you look closely, you'll see Karl Malone went over and grabbed, I think it was Charles Barkley. I might be wrong. You guys can go look it up. But he goes and he grabs the Rockets player and he just like gives him not just a bear hug, but he literally picks him up and drags him away from Stockton, and there's no call. That's the sort of basketball that I grew up watching, right? And you know, you didn't realize it at the time. You know, I mean, you're a fan of like the hometown team, right? You always think they can do no wrong and all that, you know. But yeah, it was. In hindsight, you look back and you think, yeah, this was pretty dirty. This is the sort of game you want your kids to watch, right? These are your heroes, right? Anyway, we don't have anything quite like that in today's NBA. The problem with today's NBA, in part, is that nobody plays dirty anymore, right? You got a bunch of guys doing like the thing they're supposed to do and all of that. We won. Game over. Well, how about this? I mean, this is what, about like a 10-minute video or something like that, right? I mean, we always want to, you know, try to keep that money flowing here. Now, what we want to do is we want to attract more views and stuff like that. So let's play another game. Why don't we do this again, huh? So we're at 13-5 now. We've beaten 13 of the 27 teams, right? So we're right almost at halfway. We finally beat the Cavs. It was a close game, but we did it. And so let's do it again, huh? So let's put in our quarters. And let's do it again. That was fun. I like that. I thought that was interesting. Let's go do it again. So we're going to do the same thing here. We want to make sure that we get, you know, on everybody's YouTube front page with these games. So the best way to do it is you try to increase the amount of watch time by playing another game. So we'll play against Denver and see if we can beat the Nuggets here. Let's see if we can actually win a tip-off for a change. Somebody was telling me that you push turbo and, you know, whatever button to win that. That's what I just did. It didn't do anything, man. So if you gave me that advice, man, I really hate to tell you this, but it didn't work. All right, here we go. We're going to get serious about it this time around. Anyway, yeah, so instead of making tomorrow's video, here I am playing NBA Jam. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make, like I said, this video talking about that scandal. It should be similar to other videos that I've made. I don't know, maybe there are other YouTube videos about it. I assume that there are other YouTube videos out there about everything, right? But it's going to be different because it'll be on this channel, right? And as you know, that makes it better. We'll see. I'll get a whole bunch of you know, original newspaper articles. I'll see if I can look up things from like magazines and stuff like that, you know, and I think it was 1951 that the scandal broke, so we'll see what we can find. The funny thing is that the reason why I got interested in this was I was thinking about different topics, and I thought, you know, I could talk about the NIT. The old NIT tournament used to be bigger than the NCAA tournament. I mean, this is all stuff that I've known for a long time, but I've been kind of curious about. I don't know why. I don't understand, you know, exactly what was happening and all that. Yeah, so I was like looking on, I don't know, probably Wikipedia or something like that, and I saw a mention on there of Kentucky in 1949 losing in the first round of the NIT on purpose, only to go on and win the NCAA tournament. And I thought that's really interesting, right? And so you look a little bit closer, you realize that at least Wikipedia doesn't exactly have like their game-by-game record. I'm pretty sure you can find that elsewhere. You know, but you look at stuff like that and you think, okay, well, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something we could put together and we could, you know, dive deeper into the scandal and, you know, come up with a video maybe that people want to watch. And that's the way that YouTube is. And it's always this sort of like, you know, who knows what's going to happen type thing. Because, oh, love that. That was beautiful. Good job, MJ. Can you imagine MJ doing that in a game? Anyway. Should have taken the 3, huh? Alright, tied after 1. We'll keep it alive here. Anyway, yeah, you know, the way it is with YouTube is you come up with a great idea for a video, you put a bunch of time and effort into it, you put it together, you make it, you know, you see what it's going to be like, and then you end up getting like, you know, 20 views or something like that, and you're like, why did I even try? Actually, on this channel, that's exactly what happened back in the early days, right? I would put like hours into this video or whatever, and nobody would go watch. You know, what you learn how to do early on is you learn how to just keep going. You just got to keep the grind alive. The more that you grind, the better you're going to be. And the reason why is in part because the algorithm will understand finally what it is that you're doing and what kind of videos you're making, right? like there are some tricks to making it so that you can get attention right away. But the hard part is not doing that. The hard part is making sure the algorithm will go out and look for the audience yourself. That's the thing that's really, really rough about doing this. So when I talk with people about, you know, YouTube video creation and stuff, I realize that there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of like misunderstandings among people about what's actually involved, right? It's not so much like you don't get to just sort of act like a moron all the time unless you actually want to make like Mr. Beast style videos that are like designed for 12-year-olds, right? Like the majority of people don't really want to do that. Most people, I think, on the platform want to do something that's kind of serious and that goes into whatever they're passionate about, whatever they're interested in, you know, something like that. Oh, man, come on. Oh, I'm always getting that wrong. There we go. Anyway, the sort of like act like a moron stuff, right? Like my youngest son, who's, how old is he, like 10, right? Maybe he wants to watch it, right? But most people don't really want to watch. What was that? What was that? Can you tell me what just happened? Did I just see what I thought I saw? Wow, deflection for a shot. Anyway, that's the thing. You know, most people, I think most people who make content don't want to make, you know, garbage tier, you know, brain rot. You know, most people want to make content that's actually like good and that's helpful and that people want to watch and, you know, makes them look somewhat intelligent, you know, and stuff like that. Wow, Pippin hasn't had a single injury. Is he even playing this game? Did he decide to take the day off? All right. Let me know what you think about this 2 for 1. Is this good? Is this bad? You know, I think it's pretty good, hopefully. I at least think it's more interesting to watch than freaking EA Sports and the slowest game of all time. Take it, Scott. There we go. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to content creation, like the grind is very, very real. You gotta at some point, at some level, you gotta really start to respect the grind, man, because it's really, 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 really real, and there are times where it can be really frustrating. Like I said, you know, you put something together and like it gets no traction at all, and you're like, what did I do wrong? You know, I made this video on this channel. The first video I made was about Michael Jordan's first college games. I went over, I got the video of it, and I watched it. I did a summary of it and all this stuff. Spent, you know, a couple hours putting this thing together. And it got no views like forever. And the funny thing is that when I finally had a video on this channel that started doing well, which was the one about Jordan in this game, NBA Jam, the lack of Michael Jordan and, you know, my understanding as to why. When I finally had a video that did well, all of a sudden that very first video that I made went from like nothing to like a couple thousand views like overnight. Because YouTube started looking at people who watched the other video and said, oh, you might like this one, and started recommending it, right? So like that's kind of the way that it works on the platform. And so as a result, like if you're wondering why it is that I'm making, you know, a bunch of like gameplay videos and stuff, part of it is because I want to actually play some of these games. I want to have an incentive to do this, because without this type of like video coverage, I would like think about like doing this NBA Jam project, but I probably wouldn't actually do it, right? But part of it is that I need B-roll to like, you know, put together videos so that it doesn't take me forever to make a video, because trust me, without the B-roll for like video game or whatever, it can take you a long time to put it together, even if you know like exactly what it is you want to say and exactly what you want to do, because you got to play, right? But the other reason why I do this is because it's very good for the channel, and it sort of helps, you know, keep things alive. It's kind of like, you know, buying a whole bunch more lottery tickets. You can think of it in that, you know, sense. You know, you put another video out, let's see how this one does, you know. But also it can help, you know, develop people who have, you know, a habit of watching the channel. You can get, you know, sort of a more solid core of viewers, so you're not just looking at, you know, one-offs and stuff like that. You know, and every once in a while you'll get videos that sort of take off, like my first video about Team USA basketball, which for some reason people wanted to watch. I'll be frank with you, man, I don't know why people like that game. That game's awful. That game's horrible, right? That game's like total slop garbage tier, man. almost as bad as we're playing against the freaking Nuggets. Man, we should be dominating them, right? Dikembe who? You know what I'm saying? Scotty. This is me going postal on everybody. All right, take it, Scotty. There you go. There you go. That's what we want to see. I was going after those guys like I'm playing Doom. There we go. I'll tell you this, though. So I didn't actually watch the full Team USA Dream Team games against Croatia and Canada like I wanted to. But watching just parts of that game against Croatia, looking through it for like clips of stuff and stuff like that, really makes me appreciate how good the Dream Team was. I mean, you don't know, unless you've actually watched those games, you don't know how good this team actually was. I mean, the Dream Team was like incredible, right? I mean, I was reading last night before bed, I was reading Wikipedia, and they're talking about how, oh, well, these were a bunch of great, you know, veteran players and stuff, and that's kind of true, right? Except for, you know, Leitner and, you know, whatever. But the truth about the Dream Team is that it wasn't just, you know, a bunch of, like, good veteran players. This was, like, you know, NBA Hall of Famers, like, the entire team, pretty much, other than Christian Leitner, were NBA Hall of Famers. And these guys were in their prime. That's the thing. Like, it's not just like, oh, yeah, they're a bunch of good players, you know, but these are, like, good players at, like, the height of their careers. Bad decision. Anyway. There you go. There's a little bit of spiel on the Dream Team. We win again. I was injured 17 times. It doesn't matter. We knocked Mutombo flat 29 times. That's why he couldn't do anything to us in the end. But look at this. Dikembe Mutombo's 3 for 6 from three-point range. Are you kidding me? Have you ever even watched an NBA game? I mean, geez, who put that together? Anyway, so we're halfway through the project now. We play against Golden State next. I don't even know who Golden State has, so you guys are going to have to tell me down in the comments. But yeah, we win again, which is nothing new, I know, you know, and we'll sort of see how it goes from here. We're going to keep this up until we've beaten everybody. And then when we're done beating everybody, I don't know, maybe we'll do some hang time. Maybe we'll go back to this and we'll play through everybody with Kerry Hopkins. What do you think about that? You know, get a little bit of our favorite adult model in there. So, I don't know, something like that. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that. I'll talk with you again tomorrow. Bye.